Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on the pons, the middle segment of the brainstem. In this image, we're looking at a sagittal section of the brainstem. The pons lies between the midbrain above and the medulla below. It's located in the posterior cranial fossa, resting on the clivus and separated from the cerebellum by the fourth ventricle. From this view, you can appreciate just how the pons acts as a bridge, both anatomically and functionally, between different parts of the central nervous system. Now we have the ventral view of the pons. The front surface of the pons is marked by the basilar sulcus, a shallow groove that often accommodates the basilar artery. On each side of the sulcus, the pons continues as the middle cerebellar peduncle, connecting it with the cerebellum. One important landmark here is the emergence of the trigeminal nerve by two distinct roots, a large sensory root and a smaller motor root. This trigeminal nerve origin separates the main ventral surface of the pons from the adjacent middle cerebellar peduncle. At the lower border, where the pons meets the medulla, we have the pontocerebellar junction. This is where the roots of cranial nerves 6, abducens, 7, facial, and 8, vestibulocochlear, attach to the ventral surface. This image shows the dorsal surface of the pons, which helps form part of the floor of the fourth ventricle. If you imagine removing the cerebellum, you'd see how the fourth ventricle lies between the pons in front and the cerebellum behind. This dorsal region is also known as the pontine tegmentum when we discuss the internal organization. Let's move on to the internal structure of the pons. We commonly divide it into two main parts. 1. Basilar ventral. Part 2. Pontine tegmentum, dorsal part. Basilar part occupies the interior region and contains descending tracts like the corticobulbar, corticospinal, and corticopontine tracts. Scattered among these fibers are clusters of pontine nuclei, which help relay signals from the cerebral cortex to the cerebellum via the pontocerebellar fibers. Pontine tegmentum. Found posteriorly, it houses the cranial nerve nuclei for CN5 through 7, with the 8th located around the pontomedullary region. We study the tegmentum at two main levels, the inferior, lower level, and the superior, upper level, to understand how the structures and nuclei change as we move upwards. Tegmentum at the inferior level, gray matter, abducent nucleus, CN6, controls lateral rectus muscle of the eye. Facial nerve motor nucleus, CN7. Its fibers loop around the abducent nucleus, creating the facial colliculus on the floor of the fourth ventricle. Spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, CNV, extends up from the spinal cord's substantia gelatinosa, processes pain and temperature from the face. Superior salivatory, inferior salivatory, and lacrimatory nuclei, medial to the facial nucleus, involved in parasympathetic innervation to salivary and lacrimal glands. Nucleus of tractus solitarius, receives taste sensations, vestibular and cochlear nuclei, for hearing and balance. White matter trapezoid body, formed by decussating cochlear fibers. Lemnisci, including the medial lemniscus, touch proprioception, spinal lemniscus, pain temperature, and others. Medial longitudinal fasciculus, MLF, a coordinating tract for eye movements and other reflexes. Tectospinal tract, involved in reflex postural movements in response to visual, auditory stimuli. Spinal tract of the trigeminal nerve, carries pain, temperature sensations from the face. Finally, at the superior level of the pontine tegmentum, there are a few key differences. Gray matter, motor and principal sensory nuclei of the trigeminal nerve, CNV. These nuclei give rise to the trigeminal nerve for facial sensation and mastication. White matter, lemnisci. Now we see the medial lemniscus, the trigeminal lemniscus, carrying tactile info from the face, the spinal lemniscus, and the lateral lemniscus, auditory pathway. They're generally arranged from medial to lateral in this region. This level of the pons is crucial for understanding how major sensory pathways reorganize before projecting up to the midbrain and eventually to the thalamus and sensory cortex. And that covers our cadaveric look at the pons, from its external landmarks and attachments of cranial nerves to the sophisticated internal arrangement of tracts and nuclei. Remember that the pons not only relays information between the cerebrum and cerebellum, but also hosts critical reflexes and cranial nerve functions. Thank you for watching.